After the male lead from her redemption story showed up, I handed the well-mannered heroine I had raised back over to him. The once rebellious and difficult girl had blossomed into a refined young woman. They were a perfect match, so naturally, there was no longer any place for me. I lied, telling her I was going to buy her those special pastries from the bakery in Northwood, and then I simply disappeared. But I never expected that 2 years later, I would be invited to return to the States. The moment I got off the plane, I was bundled into a car. Ethan, her voice was laced with a chilling intensity. It's been 2 years. Where are my pastries? Ethan, someone was knocking on my door. I opened my eyes, but my mind was still reeling from the dream. Chloe Anderson pushed the door open and came in. Still not awake? Did you not sleep well last night? I instinctively clutched the blankets and said coldly, "Why did you just walk in?" The young woman paused. "Sorry, I'll leave now." She gave me a gentle smile and left a glass of warm milk on the nightstand. I rubbed my temples as I got out of bed and, without a second thought, poured the milk down the bathroom sink. The milk was thick and viscous, draining agonizingly slowly. At 15, Chloe Anderson was already a master of disguise. At this age, her favorite pastime was testing her newly developed concoctions on people. This was supposed to be a redemption story set among the rich and powerful. Chloe Anderson, the heroine, had been beaten and berated by her parents since she was a child, a tragic upbringing that made her unhinged beneath a veneer of obedience. And I was the Anderson family's adopted son, her older brother with no blood relation, brought in to live with and take care of her when we were older. The very first time we met, she had flowers waiting for me. But that night, a venomous snake slithered out from among the blossoms. "Where'd you catch the viper?" I asked casually over the breakfast table. Chloe Anderson's expression didn't flicker. She remained perfectly composed. "What are you talking about, Ethan? I don't understand." She was 4 years younger than me and petite. She blinked as she said it, looking the picture of innocence. I smiled, getting up to bring a pot of soup from the kitchen. "You're right. You're still just a kid. Here, I made this soup this morning. It's good for you." With that, I ladled a bowl for her. "Thanks, Ethan." Chloe Anderson smiled sweetly. Fair skin, almond-shaped eyes, a delicate nose, and full lips. Her features were already stunning even before she had fully grown into them. She was slightly nearsighted from studying and occasionally wore a pair of thin, silver-framed glasses. I watched her take a spoonful of soup, then smiled suddenly. "Those glasses really suit you." She paused. "Are you complimenting me, Ethan?" "I am," I said, my smile vanishing. "They make you look so innocent." "Chloe Anderson, let me ask you something. Is soup made from a viper poisonous?" The next second, she knocked the soup bowl from her hands. Steaming soup spilled across the floor, some of it splashing onto her clothes. I feigned surprise. "Oh, how clumsy. Did you get burned?" "No," Chloe Anderson said, biting her lip as if holding something back. "Thanks. I'm going to go change. You can eat without me." Then she stormed upstairs. I sat at the table, idly stirring the remaining soup with a spoon. Just a kid, after all. She couldn't hide a thing. For someone who loved experimenting with potions, how could she not know that cooking a viper renders its venom harmless? My university and Chloe Anderson's high school were very close to each other. I was at Austin University, and she was at Austin University High. So, we usually commuted together. "Hurry up, you're going to be late." I waved to her from the car. A flash of annoyance crossed Chloe Anderson's face before she smoothed it back into her usual docile, harmless expression. We sat in the back, and the driver had already raised the privacy partition, shielding us from view. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the smile vanish from Chloe's lips, and a small smirk played on my own. "Chloe," I said, leaning closer and lowering my voice, "your technique is still a little rough around the edges." Her lips pressed into a thin, hard line, no doubt wondering how I had seen through her act. I pulled out a snake-shaped pin, tossed it into her hand, and smiled. "You're still just a kid. You can't hide your tells." I had my awakening the day before I met Chloe Anderson. In a dream, I saw the entire plot of the story unfold. Because this was a redemption story, Chloe's tragic childhood of abuse was standard plot. So was her bullying me and stirring up all kinds of trouble. Before the male lead arrived, she was destined to turn this house upside down until he saw through her facade and redeemed her. Unfortunately for her, I was taking on the role of a modern parent. Her unhinged behavior, her psychological issues, I treated it all as simple disobedience. A kid who's always in a bad mood, probably just acting out. A firm hand is all it takes. The next day, the way Chloe Anderson looked at me was different. She was like a coiled snake, cautiously observing her prey, preparing to strike. "Come on, time to eat." I kept my smile gentle. "Chloe, That business with the soup yesterday was such a surprise. I've decided it's best if I stay out of the kitchen from now on. You don't have to look at me so warily. You're not afraid of snakes. She stated it flatly, then sat down. I kept smiling at her. I'm not afraid of anything. Really? Chloe's face was blank. Then I'll just have to test everything, one by one, until I find what you're afraid of. Go ahead. I lowered my gaze and said something seemingly unrelated. Back at the orphanage, snakes in my bed would have been a luxury. Centipedes, cockroaches, slugs, that was the norm. Your family has been very good to me. I haven't seen a bug in a long time. So please, go on. Let's see if I'm still afraid of them. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson were always busy. Theirs was a marriage of convenience between two powerful families. They lived under the same roof, but their hearts were miles apart, each prioritizing their own interests. Chloe was one of their few shared interests, and I was the person they trusted to take care of her. So, I wasn't surprised when I got a call from Chloe's homeroom teacher. Hello? Is this Chloe Anderson's brother? What did surprise me was the teacher's grave tone. She put a classmate in the hospital. The administration is involved. She's going to be disciplined. To be fair, Chloe was very good at keeping up appearances. She'd always been a model student, earning nothing but praise from teachers and classmates for being so refined and mature for her age. Even when the little viper couldn't stand someone and slipped them something to cause a nasty rash, she never got caught. But this was different. Why did you assault your classmate? Chloe stood alone in the office. The boy she'd beaten was already in the hospital. I saw a photo of him, bruised and swollen. His injuries looked severe. A girl raised on violence. She was a skilled fighter. You could tell just by looking that she had intended to cause serious harm. The teacher slammed his hand on the desk. Do you have any idea how close you came to killing him? Chloe didn't flinch, just shot us a look, her face a complete blank. There was something in that look that was inexplicably chilling. It was a side of her I had never seen before. The teacher was about to continue yelling, but in the next moment, I was on my feet, moving before I could think. Sir, please let me speak with Chloe alone. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Our Chloe isn't a violent person. Why did you do it? It was the third time I'd asked her that question. Chloe still refused to answer, just staring coldly out the window. This was getting nowhere. I was losing my patience with this rebellious teenager. Fine, don't talk. Do whatever you want. I'm leaving. Good luck surviving your parents when they find out. The Andersons were incredibly strict with her. Getting straight A's was the bare minimum. If she stepped out of line in the slightest, they would beat her half to death without a second thought. I rubbed my forehead, wondering how she hadn't been broken by them already. Are you worried about me? Chloe finally spoke, looking up at me with that innocent expression of hers. Shouldn't you be wishing I was dead? I froze. Maybe so, but at the end of the day, she was still only 15. After the childhood she'd had, it was a miracle she could even pretend to be a model student. If I really wanted you dead, I would have told your parents by now, I sighed. Besides, you've stopped throwing venomous creatures into my room. The next day, I took Chloe back to the school. The teacher's anger hadn't cooled, and he directed it at me. So what's the story? Is Chloe going to apologize or not? Where are her parents? Why is it always you? What good can you do? That boy is still in the hospital on and 4. Chloe's hands suddenly clenched into fists. I noticed and took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze, not realizing at first that her whole body had gone rigid. Sir, you should be thankful he's only on and 4, I said with a smile, sliding a flash drive across the desk. Because if it had been me, I might have put that boy in a wheelchair for life. The flash drive contained an audio recording from a female classmate who had witnessed the entire thing. After school, Chloe had stayed behind to clean the classroom, and the boy had started harassing her. Well, look who's not too proud to clean up for herself today. We were just talking about it. You're a little orphan, aren't you? Born to be beaten with a broom, I bet. The Andersons were private people. Not only did they send Chloe to a public school, but they never once made an appearance. Her clothes were old, and the standards they set for her were impossibly high. Failure meant a beating. Over time, rumors started at school that she was an orphan. The word beaten was Chloe's trigger. In the end, the teacher's face went pale. I just held Chloe's hand and stated coldly, I expect a public apology to Chloe Anderson from you, from that student, and from his parents. And don't say I didn't warn you. The Anderson family is wealthy and private, but we hold a grudge. Ethan, Chloe knocked on my door. Without turning around, I said, come in. What's up? She was holding a few dew-kissed white roses, stammering slightly. The roses in the garden bloomed. I cut some for the vase in your room. I raised an eyebrow and turned to look at her. The young woman arranged the white flowers in the vase. They were beautiful. Why did you stop calling me by my full name? I asked suddenly. When you first got here, it was Ethan this and Ethan that. Chloe looked flustered. I smiled again. And what happened to hiding vipers in the flowers? You should leave the garden snakes alone. I feel sorry for them, the way you torment them all day. The young woman had never been taught how to apologize. Instead, there were fresh roses in my room, warm milk on the table, and even a black card that had mysteriously appeared in my bag. You should keep this. I tossed the black card on her desk. Your parents gave this to you, not me. What would they think if they found out I had it? Chloe looked up at me, her lips pressed together, the picture of innocence. I sighed. I'm not holding what you did before against you. I wasn't apologizing. Teenagers, they never say what they mean. She stammered a little when she said it, a cute sort of defiance. Then, she added, you don't even look like a college student if you don't buy some decent clothes. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So that afternoon, I went to the mall. Just as I was about to finish my shopping, someone tapped me on the shoulder. He was a handsome man, not stunningly so, but there was something about him that drew your gaze. Hello there. His smile was appraising. Mr. Supporting Character. Tell me, how is my heroine doing under your care? Here, take it back. I got home laden with shopping bags and tossed the black card onto her desk. Chloe didn't take it, instead glancing at the hall behind me. You sure know how to shop for a college guy, don't you? I raised an eyebrow. Worried about the money? No, she said, looking away as her voice dropped. You didn't bring any security. You couldn't possibly carry all that yourself. You could have brought someone to help. How did you know I didn't have security with me? Chloe paused. I couldn't help but smile and ruffle her hair. All right then, next time you go shopping, you can bring me along to carry your bags. A blush crept up her face and she turned away, saying stiffly, we'll see. Chloe Anderson was, at her core, just a kid. And a kid who was properly loved, how bad can they really turn out to be? The next day, I got another call from her homeroom teacher. Having learned Chloe's true identity, his tone was significantly more respectful. I've explained the misunderstanding to the other students' parents. After discussing it, we've decided to issue a public apology to Chloe during this morning's assembly. Would you be available to attend on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Anderson? Chloe, who was beside me, listened with a disdainful snort. I smiled. Yes, I'll be there. He's being awfully polite, she said. Was there something else on that flash drive you gave him? I slowly put my phone down and sighed. You're too smart for your own good, little Chloe. That snob of a teacher has probably given you a hard time in the past. So, I also included evidence of him taking bribes from parents on that drive. Just a little insurance. Chloe was silent for a good 30 seconds. Just when I thought she wasn't going to say anything, I felt a warm touch on my cheek. I get it, she said, pinching my cheek in retaliation for me ruffling her hair earlier. And stop calling me little Chloe. At the assembly, Chloe and I stood right at the front. She wore the new dress I'd bought for her, looking stunningly beautiful and clean, with an air of cool detachment. On stage, the boy was reading his apology to her. When he finished, he had to bow, as if Chloe were some visiting dignitary. I'm basking in your glory, future CEO Anderson, I teased quietly. Chloe didn't say anything, but her hand fidgeted with the hem of my sweatshirt. For some reason, my heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively glanced out at the crowd. No students were paying attention to us, but someone else was. Hi. It was the male lead from the mall, standing ramrod straight off to the side. He smiled and mouthed, Ethan, well done. Then, he turned and walked away. The days passed, one much like the next. Chloe, like any high school student, had little free time and often stayed up late doing homework. Occasionally, I'd catch her sneaking down to her makeshift lab in the basement to work on her experiments. If you keep doing things that endanger public safety, I'll have the police come and confiscate all this junk. I cornered Chloe at the door, threatening her. She was almost an adult by now, but she still only came up to my chest. She kept her eyes down, showing no sign of remorse. I was wrong. She said the words seriously enough, but at some point, her hand had found the hem of my shirt and was tugging on it. What was that? I said, my body tensing for some reason. I couldn't hear you. Chloe obediently leaned in to repeat herself. The distance between us shrank. Her eyes, now without her glasses, were locked on mine with a look of deliberate invitation. But the next second, I pulled her close, our noses brushing. She was caught off guard. Ethan, I didn't answer. I pushed up her sleeve. What is this bruise on your wrist? Chloe was a senior now. It had been over 2 years since I'd met the story's male lead. Is that the heroine's black card? She treats you this well. That's what he'd asked me in the mall. According to the plot, isn't she supposed to be making your life a living hell? And what about you? Why are you showing up now? I watched him warily, taking a few steps back to put some distance between us. The male lead's name was Felix Vance. Just as the book described, he was handsome and refined. Not as striking as a typical side character, but he had a natural charisma that made him the center of attention wherever he went. It's because I've had my awakening too, of course. Felix's smile was gentle, but I felt an inexplicable distance from him. Ethan, he said, enunciating every syllable. I have no interest in dealing with a rebellious teenage girl. I met his gaze. What do you want? Don't be so defensive, he laughed. You know the plot is irreversible. We both have to follow it. Chloe will end up with me. You can't change your destiny as a supporting character. Therefore, your job is to get her ready for me. Consider it your way of repaying the Anderson family. Chloe started avoiding me. She wouldn't tell me where the bruises came from, and when pressing her yielded nothing, I was at a loss for what to do. We entered a cold war. Until one day, I got a call. The voice on the other end was familiar, gentle but hollow. Felix's voice came through the phone, tinged with a laugh. It's been 2 years, Ethan. Let's meet. I never really knew who Felix was. Other than the fact that he was the male lead, I was the supporting character, and he seemed to be around our age. I knew nothing about him. He, on the other hand, seemed to know everything about me. How come you never go back to visit the orphanage? Winter had already set in. The waitress brought our hot coffees, and Felix blew on his before asking slowly, or did you really think a few years with the Andersons would let you reinvent yourself? It's none of your business, I said coldly. He smiled. You know nothing about me. Felix understood the plot far better than I did. He not only knew my background, but he had also shown up to give me my mission right after I had finally gotten Chloe under control. I truly didn't know him. So what makes you so sure Chloe will be devoted to you? Felix burst out laughing. He set down his coffee, his voice turning cool. If she doesn't fall for me, the male lead, who will she fall for? You. After half a month of giving Chloe the silent treatment, I finally went back to the Anderson house. I decided to test the waters, to ask about the girl's romantic feelings. Since this was a redemption story, the narrative should have shifted the moment the task of redeeming her fell to me instead of the male lead. The one thing that could change the story was the protagonist's own choices. I couldn't believe a story where the characters were self-aware could still stick to its original script. But I wasn't sure if she felt the same way about me. The line just kept ringing. It rang and rang. But by nightfall, Chloe still hadn't come home, and my 3 calls to her went unanswered. With the SATs less than 6 months away, she should have been home early to study, even if she had after-school duties. Something was wrong. The image of her bruises flashed in my mind. I grabbed my keys, ready to head to the school to find her. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The front door flew open as if struck by a heavy object. I stood at the top of the stairs, frozen, as I made out the dark figure in the doorway. It was Chloe. She hadn't smashed the door open. She had been thrown against it by Mr. Anderson's kick. The slender girl collapsed to the floor, a trickle of blood at the corner of her lip, her face deathly pale. Before I could even rush down to help her, I saw Felix running in from behind Mr. Anderson. He looked frantic, the picture of innocent concern. Sir, please calm down. Chloe didn't mean it. I don't know what happened. I only remember Felix playing the peacemaker and Chloe lying on the floor, barely conscious. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. You're awake. Chloe had been unconscious for a full day and night. Her left arm was broken, her body covered in bruises. When she finally opened her eyes, they were clouded and unfocused, as if she might break apart at any moment. I had taken such good care of her these past few years. She had even filled out a little. I held her hand, my own trembling uncontrollably as I checked on her again and again. I'll get the nurse. Don't cry. Chloe's fingertips brushed the corner of my eye, coming away damp. I hadn't even realized I was crying from the pain of seeing her like this. I thought, you never cried. I turned my head away and sniffled. You're seeing things. She managed a small smile, then hissed as the movement pulled at her wounds. I pressed the call button and waited for the nurse before finally managing to ask, what in the world happened? My conversation with Felix that day had ended on a sour note. Before he left, he had said one last thing. Even if she falls for someone else, she has to choose me. She can't defy the plot. I had thought the plot meant the forced coincidences of the story. I never imagined it meant that Felix would be Mr. Anderson's hand-picked choice for her husband. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere else? After the nurse left, I poured Chloe a glass of warm water and helped her drink some with a spoon. The young woman's eyes were bright as she stared at me intently. If I hurt my hand, will you always feed me like this? There was a strange, feverish intensity in her gaze. Her question carried an odd weight. I will, I said, pressing my lips together. But please don't get hurt again. I can't bear to see it. Chloe seemed surprised by my answer, her shock visible on her face. I sighed and gave her another sip of water. Why didn't you tell me that boy never really apologized? She said nothing. I feigned anger. Still not talking? Did you want me to wait until your father beat you half to death before you'd finally tell me? After a few seconds of silence, she finally spoke. That bastard. He took pictures of you and started spreading rumors. I never imagined Chloe had done it for me. The boy hadn't been satisfied with the outcome, but he knew he couldn't confront her directly. So he realized he could use me against her. He photoshopped pictures of you and threatened to post them on the Austin University forums, spreading rumors. He said if I didn't kneel and beg, he'd send them everywhere, since the whole school knew you went there after the apology. You know how much my father despises impropriety. He can't stand pretty boys who get by on their looks. He respects you now, but he would throw you out and ruin you without a second thought over something like that. So for the past 2 years, the poor girl had been enduring this for my sake, hiding her injuries from me. A few days ago, she finally smashed the boy's phone and got rid of the flash drive with the backup photos, finally putting an end to it. She beat him up and threatened him with one of her concoctions from the basement. It should have been a perfect plan, but somehow, Mr. Anderson found out. He destroyed her lab and beat her so badly he broke her arm. With only a month left until the SATs, Chloe stayed in the hospital to study, planning to go straight to the exam from there. Her arm wouldn't heal in time for the test. Thankfully, it was her left arm and not her right. When I pushed open the door to her room, Chloe wasn't there. Through the window, I saw them in the garden below. Felix was pushing her wheelchair as she enjoyed the sun. Chloe was smiling. The two of them seemed to be getting along very well. My chest tightened for some reason, and I looked away. Ethan, Mr. Anderson. I turned quickly and greeted him quietly. What brings you here, sir? I wasn't busy, so I came to visit. Mr. Anderson looked refined and gentle, a stark contrast to the violent man from the other night. We stood by the large window, watching the two figures in the garden below. Felix has been taking good care of her while you've been away, Mr. Anderson said suddenly. He's the youngest son of the Vance family. Good personality, well-spoken, a much better fit for our family than Chloe is. They're a good match. I plan to arrange their engagement after she graduates. I lowered my gaze and nodded. They are. You've been with Chloe for a long time. When she graduates, it will be a good time for you to prepare to study abroad. Ethan, you know that my wife and I both hold you in high regard. The future of the Anderson family business will have a place for you, but Chloe's future will not. He laid it all out on the table. Mr. Anderson knew everything. He was just reminding me of my place. Yes, I understand. After he left, I continued to watch Felix and Chloe in the garden. They both had faint, happy smiles on their faces. She had never, it seemed, been that gentle with any man but me. So, this was the power of the male lead. The SATs were over before I knew it. On the last day, I went to pick her up with a bouquet of flowers. Ethan, Chloe's injured arm was still in a sling, but that didn't stop her from throwing her good arm around me in a hug. She smelled faintly of sweet roses. She took the flowers, her smile brighter than I had ever seen it. Are we going out to eat? Did she know she was supposed to get engaged now that the exams were over? I hesitated for a moment, just as my phone screen lit up. It was Felix. The message read, 5 o'clock flight. I'll take you to the airport. It didn't matter. She had no idea that as soon as her exams were over, I would be gone. Ethan, you're spacing out again. It was the third time Chloe had asked me that. I'd been lost in thought throughout the entire meal. Sorry, I said, pouring a glass of water and lying without batting an eye. I didn't sleep well last night. Why not? I was worried about your exams. Chloe smiled. She seemed happier today than I'd ever seen her. Well, you can sleep well tonight then. It was 2 in the afternoon. Felix had told me to be ready to leave by 3 to make my flight. We finished our meal quickly and stood on the busy street. We both stood out and drew more than a few glances from passers-by. Your girlfriend is lovely, young man. Buy her a flower. An old woman selling flowers approached us. I was about to refuse, but before I could, Chloe had already paid the woman. No, it's for him, she said to the woman. Just one is perfect. Thank you. Before I knew it, a single, dew-kissed white rose was in my hand. Just one. I thought she'd buy the whole bucket. Knowing her, it wouldn't have been the first time, but Chloe just smiled and shook her head. One is all I need. Just one. Chloe was so happy today, even if I didn't know why. Ethan, let's go to Northgate Park today. I'm going to go get you something to eat. I cut her off. Her smile faded. But, we just ate. I've been craving those special pastries from the bakery in Northwood. I forced myself to lie, pulling my lips into a smile. I've been wanting to get some for you to try for a long time. Today feels like the right day. Perhaps my feigned sincerity convinced her. The young woman pursed her lips and nodded. It was 2:55. I turned and looked past the building across the street, and I saw the car waiting by the curb. Felix was in the driver's seat. Clutching the single white rose tightly, I got into the car. Felix glanced over at me. TSK. I see you only managed to get one rose out of the deal. I said nothing. I just leaned back against the seat and slowly, deliberately, covered my eyes with the flower. As the worthless supporting character in this redemption story, a single rose was more than enough payment for our 3 years together. I majored in finance. Mr. Anderson may have been a violent man, but his status and wealth ensured I sailed through my studies, graduating from one of the world's top universities. 5 years had passed. I finally had time to go to the bank and check the account he had set up for me. It was the card Mr. Anderson had given me for my expenses abroad, but I rarely touched it, preferring to earn my own money through part-time jobs, using his funds only as a last resort. Which is why I only discovered today that the deposits had stopped a long time ago. Can you tell me the last time a domestic transfer was made to this account? The bank teller helping me was also from my home country. He joked with me, "You have time to check on where the money's from, but not enough time to go back and visit?" In my 5 years abroad, I had never once returned. Not only that, but to completely sever ties with Chloe and Felix's destined love story, I had changed my number and deleted all of their contact information. It was all at Mr. Anderson's instruction. To be blunt, besides that bank account, I had no remaining ties to the Anderson family. The understanding had been that when the time was right, he would send for me to return. He sent me away for the sake of Chloe and Felix's relationship. He would bring me back to get a return on his investment in my education. But now, years later, I had heard nothing. I decided to buy a ticket home. After 5 years, Chloe would have graduated from college. She and Felix would have likely married right after graduation, as planned. Felix had gotten to skip the whole redemption phase and go straight to the happy ending with her. And now, I could return and truly become her brother, her ally in the family business. As I was packing, my landlady asked, "Packing so much. Are you planning on coming back?" I thought for a moment, then answered, "I am, but I want to let them see my home country with me." As I spoke, I tossed a small vial into the box. Inside the vial were dried petals from the rose she had given me 5 years ago. "Are you all right, sir?" I had to run to the restroom to be sick as soon as I got off the plane. I get motion sickness, so even abroad, I rarely went out. I had almost no social life, let alone a romantic one. I waved a hand. "I'm fine, thanks." I dragged my suitcase out of the airport and stood by the curb, fumbling with the local ride-sharing app on my phone for what felt like an eternity. A horn honked. A taxi pulled up. Frustrated, I gave up and just got in. "Where to?" "The Anderson Group Tower. Do you know how to get there?" The nausea from the flight hadn't faded, so I kept my eyes closed for the entire ride. I did notice, however, a single white rose on the dashboard when I first got in. It made me glance instinctively at the driver in the rearview mirror. It was a woman. She seemed young, wearing a black baseball cap and a black face mask. She was quiet. She hadn't said a word after her initial question. I closed my eyes and leaned back to rest. When the car finally stopped, I opened my eyes to complete silence. The noise of the city was gone. My heart leaped into my throat. The scene outside the car was unnervingly familiar. The suburbs, the mansion, the golf course visible in the backyard. "We're here." In that instant, I knew. I turned my head to look at the driver's seat. The woman had taken off her hat and mask. Her skin was pale, making her red-rimmed eyes stand out. "Ethan, what took you so long to come back?" My mind went completely blank. I never imagined I would see Chloe Anderson again like this, so suddenly. I had told myself over and over again that I was just a supporting character in this story. I had redeemed the heroine for Felix, fulfilled his destiny for him, and in doing so, repaid my debt to the Anderson family. He would then appear, I would make my exit, and they would get their happy ending. The story would be over. I never considered what might happen after the story ended. "Where are the pastries you promised me?" Chloe forced a smile, tears welling in her eyes. "That bakery in Northwood? It closed down before I even took my SATs. She had gone looking for me. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. I turned away, thinking I could ignore her tear-filled eyes. "Please, don't cry." That's what she had said to me, the day she woke up after her father had beaten her unconscious. And now, here I was, the one who had abandoned her, making her cry all over again. "Chloe, don't." "Enough." She suddenly got out of the car. Then she yanked open my door, pulled something from behind her back, and roughly dragged me out of the car. I heard a click. My right wrist was handcuffed to hers. Her voice was thick with tears. "Ethan, don't you ever think about leaving me again." It was all so sudden. Even sitting here in my old bedroom, it all felt unreal. A red mark circled my right wrist from the tightness of the handcuffs. Chloe saw it, unlocked them, and then threw the cuffs into the trash can with a vengeance. Stupid thing. She was cursing the handcuffs. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but looking at her now, I felt a lump form in my throat. She had grown taller. 5 years was enough time for a girl to become a woman. Chloe's hair was longer now, falling in soft waves. The belt of her dress accentuated her curves. The little girl I knew was now a poised and elegant woman. Ethan. She came and wrapped her arms around me. She hugged me tightly from behind, burying her face in my back, nuzzling against me and breathing deeply, like a child who had been terribly wronged. Let go for a second. She ignored me, throwing a tantrum. Nothing I said could soothe her. She just kept repeating, "You're just going to lie to me again." I was speechless. The tender moment was broken by a knock on the door. I heard the person address Chloe as Ms. Anderson. That was the title the assistants used for her father. "Hello. I was wondering about Ms. Anderson's marital status." "Oh, you must be joking. Everyone knows you're the one she loves. Now that you're back, after all these years she's been alone, you must be starting to plan the wedding, right?" the young housekeeper said, beaming at us. I paused, at a complete loss for words. No one here had mentioned Felix. Felix, whose engagement to her had been a done deal 5 years ago. The original story mentioned that everyone adored him, even the household staff. But now, I looked down from the balcony and saw Chloe in the courtyard, seriously discussing work with her assistant. The only way to find out what was going on was to ask her directly. "Ethan, have some of this." Chloe kept putting food on my plate. "You don't have to. I'm the one who's supposed to take care of you." I hesitated, but finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "Where's Felix?" The air went still. Chloe didn't say a word. "Or, Mr. Anderson?" "Dead." She answered quickly this time. "What?" "He's dead. A brain hemorrhage. They couldn't save him." My eyes widened. From what I remembered, Mr. Anderson was in excellent health. He shouldn't have died so suddenly. "Everyone suspected I had something to do with it," Chloe added coolly. "What do you think, Ethan?" I. And they were right. I did do it." She admitted it without any hesitation. I pressed my lips together, unsure of what to say. But then, Chloe smiled. A beautiful, empty smile that didn't reach her eyes. "He tried to hit me again, but this time I fought back. He couldn't handle it. The rage gave him a stroke." "Ethan, want to guess what happened to Felix after my father died?" "When I left for abroad, Felix was the only one at the airport to see me off. Just before I left, he called out to me, 'Guess what Chloe and I will be like when you get back?'" Without turning back, I said, "Very happy." He laughed, then leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Just like that day in the hospital, when you saw me pushing her in the garden. By then, we'll probably be pushing our own child in a stroller, just like that." Chloe didn't put me under house arrest. She wouldn't do that to me. She just wouldn't let me leave the house. The basement door was locked. The lock on the door wasn't new, but it was clean, free of dust. It had clearly been used recently, and often. "Oh, sir, what are you doing here?" The housekeeper saw me and rushed over to lead me away. "You shouldn't be here. It's not a clean place." "What's in there?" I remembered it as Chloe's old laboratory, the one her father had destroyed. The housekeeper wouldn't say. "This is not a place for you, sir." "Has Ms. Anderson been down here recently?" Unable to dissuade me, she finally nodded. As I walked away, I already knew the answer. A wild animal only obeys its tamer, not the ringmaster trying to put on a show. "Ethan." Chloe was drunk. She came home reeking of alcohol and clung to me, refusing to let go. "Let go." "No. If I let go, you'll run away again." I could hear the tears in her voice. I never realized how much she cried. I sighed. "You're watching me so closely. How could I possibly run?" She didn't answer. I looked at her, and an idea began to form. "Ethan, you be good." I carried her to the bed. Chloe hadn't changed. When she was drunk, she became very docile. I had found a butler costume in her closet yesterday. It must have been a gift from some admirer. On top of it was a new pair of handcuffs. The little girl had certainly grown up. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked, tugging at my shirt. Her jacket fell to the floor. I took the bow tie from the costume and tied it loosely around her wrists. "You've had too much to drink. Go to sleep." Chloe stared at me, her gaze unwavering. "Do you love me?" I looked down at her. "It doesn't matter if you love me or not," she said, burying her face against my chest. "I love you. I only love you." I wanted Felix gone. I didn't want anyone to stop me. There was no one left to stop her now. I sighed and held her gently. "Who said I don't love you?" I easily found the key in Chloe's pocket. She was sleeping soundly, dead to the world in her bedroom. The door creaked open. It was the first time I had ever opened the decades-old basement door. I expected to find Felix, but what I found instead was a wall covered in photographs. My awards, photos of me, the few white shirts I owned, framed and preserved. There were photos of me when I first arrived, of me learning to weed the garden, of me cooking for her in the kitchen. I knew one of the housekeepers had loved taking pictures of us. I just never imagined that after I left, she would keep all these photos, keeping this moment in time alive for so long. On the floor lay a worn, Open notebook. I picked it up. The page was open too. Ethan, Ethan. My name, written over and over, covering the entire page. I found Felix in a small room off the main basement. It was a dark, sunless space that even the rats seemed to avoid. It's me. He was sitting on a small cot. Heavy iron chains were shackled to his wrists and ankles. He was rail-thin, his eyes vacant, as if he had been locked away for a very long time. You're the one. I'm Ethan. It took him a moment to process. Then, he burst into laughter. Good, you're back. Let me go? Let me go. He seemed to have forgotten that he was the high and mighty male lead, and I was just the supporting character meant to pave his way. The story hadn't reached its intended conclusion. Instead, it had spiraled into this irreparable disaster. Felix, aren't you the male lead? Where's your plot armor now? He stared at me blankly. Then, like a terrified patient, he scrambled back into the corner. No, I'm not. No, I'm not the male lead. Ethan is. Ethan is the one. I remembered what I had finally learned from Chloe's assistant. 5 years ago, Mr. Anderson died unexpectedly. Soon after, Felix Vance, the youngest son of the Vance family, disappeared, and the engagement was called off. So he hadn't disappeared. Chloe had made him disappear. The night I found Felix, I had another dream. After 5 years, I saw the plot of the story again. But this time, the plot was empty. There was no childhood Chloe. No late-arriving Felix. There wasn't even me. There were no character interactions at all. I only saw 3 lines of text. Female lead, Chloe Anderson. Male lead, Ethan. Plot corruption under repair. Penalizing interfering supporting character, Felix Vance. Ending hint. Love the one you were meant to love. Ethan. Chloe was awake. Just like that first morning, she came in with a glass of milk, her eyes fixed on me. Except this time, the bow tie I'd tied around her wrist last night was still there. I put my head in my hand. Why is that bow still on your wrist? Don't you like it? I felt my face flush. Chloe took my hand and pressed her cheek against my palm, her voice a soft whisper. Ethan, I'll do anything you want. She looked so pure and harmless. But I just stroked her cheek and whispered, then let Felix go, okay? Her body went rigid. And the next second, I pulled her into my arms. Because I'm back now. And I'm never leaving you again. Chloe had already tortured Felix to the point of insanity. From him, she had learned all about the plot and my role as a supporting character. And Felix had deceived us both. The plot was always meant to be written by the protagonists. That's why he got the ending he deserved. I don't believe in destiny, she said, her voice firm. Ethan, if it's not you, I don't want anyone. I had never felt such a clear and profound happiness. The feeling of having my love so fiercely returned. And now, there was no one left to stand in our way. Felix was no different from a madman. He would alternate between fits of laughter and bouts of sobbing, his mind reduced to that of a toddler. Chloe sent him to a residential care facility, where nurses could look after him. The day before he left, we were busy planning our engagement. Do you feel sorry for him? Chloe asked me. I shook my head. He's not worth it. He brought these last 5 years on himself. So his fate wasn't tragic. It was justice. On the day of our engagement, Mrs. Anderson returned from the monastery. After her husband died, she seemed to have had an epiphany and moved into a monastery to atone for his sins. She had known about the abuse Chloe suffered as a child. Ethan, come here. Mrs. Anderson placed a bracelet in my palm. She smiled. Congratulations on not being fooled by the plot. My eyes widened. You mean you? Shoo. Mrs. Anderson smiled. It wasn't me. It was the one who passed away. A protagonist who never found redemption. How tragic for the next generation. That was why Mr. Anderson had taken all his rage out on Chloe. And Mrs. Anderson, merely a supporting character in her own story, carried a heavy burden of guilt. Chloe's future is in your hands now. Ethan, Chloe was holding a bouquet of flowers. Not white roses this time, but the most passionate red. We're engaged now. Are you still going to call me that? The mansion's garden was buzzing with excitement today. The famously unpredictable CEO Anderson seemed like a different person today, a smile playing at the corners of her eyes. I don't know, the young woman said, her smile never fading. Do you remember? The first time we met, that's what I called you too. I remember. You also left a viper for me. Chloe leaned in closer. Then today, we're coming full circle. From now on, I won't call you Ethan. I'll call you my fiancé. Is that okay? Of course it was. The sun was warm, as if our radiant joy had spread to the very clouds in the sky. I looked down and reverently placed the engagement ring on Chloe's finger. She smiled and asked what I was thinking. I was just thinking about what the day I finally marry you will be like. In this beautiful season of new life, every day we spent together was a devout testament to our love.